So let's talk about choosing a market. First things first. Okay, so the three things that we're going to be focusing on, now this is the basic start of it, is we're going to be looking at population trends, we're going to be looking at employment trends, and we want to be looking at the city's comprehensive plan. Okay, so with population trends, what we're looking for is we want to see that we're in a market where the population is increasing, not decreasing. So Jennifer and I just got off the phone with someone who's considering coming into one of our programs, and Detroit came up. So Detroit, Michigan came up as a market, and we were all like, yeah, Detroit's great. It's just got all this like revitalization and the river, there's all this stuff going on. But here's the reality. If you analyze the market based on the way I'm going to show you and actually look at the data, if you're looking to hold long term, that is not a place that has proven itself to be a good buy and hold long term. Can you make some quick money here and there? Sure, you can do that anywhere. But if you're looking for long term buy and hold, there's a very methodical way that we do that. And that's what I'm going to teach you. One of which is the population should be increasing. All right. So if you're looking at a market and you're seeing that the population has been steadily declining over the years, that's not going to be good news for you when 20 years from now you're holding your apartment building and now there's fewer renters than there were when you bought it. Does that make sense? So you want to be in a market where the actual population is actually increasing, or at a minimum holding steady, but ideally increasing. Because if nothing else, people are still being born. So there should be natural growth of a population just because people keep having babies. Yes, and some people are dying, but usually more people are having babies. So there should be a natural increase anyway. So even if it's like flat steady, I'd be like, it's kind of iffy. That's medium. I'm not going to knock it off right away. But if it's declining, that's a hard no. All right. And everything I'm teaching you right now, I'm going to give you a visual of. I'm going to do a demonstration of. Okay. So employment trends. So we want to see that the unemployment rate, now at the moment that we're recording this, because this is recorded, we're in the middle of going through COVID. So of course, there's tons of unemployment right now. So we have to just pull this little segment out because this is an analysis for a long-term strategy, not for a moment in time. Okay, so taking the COVID situation out of the mix, we're going to be looking at employment trends. If we see that steadily employment has been increasing quarter after quarter, year after year in a market, that's not really going to be a great thing when you want to have renters coming in who you feel are going to have a good chance of being employed and paying their rent. So you want to see that there are positive trends in employment, or you want to see that unemployment is going down. And there's this great spreadsheet, it's enormous, but there's a spreadsheet that's put together by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics that actually show month by month what the unemployment and the employment is in each of the metropolitan statistical areas, MSAs. All right, so I'm going to show that to you as well. That way you actually have data that you can base it on. And then the city's comprehensive plan. So what does that mean? So every city has plans. Like they don't just decide one day, oh, I think we're going to do some infrastructure. Oh, I think we're going to invest here. Oh, I think we're going to do this program. Everything happens at a snail's pace for one, but it all takes planning, lots of meetings. So every city has, they might call it something different, but I'm going to call it a comprehensive plan. So it could be a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, but it talks about what are the city's plans, one for the city and for different areas. So if you review a city's comprehensive plan, you can kind of get an idea for maybe where they're going to be doing some investing and maybe what areas might be going through some gentrification in the future because of the city's investment. So it just helps you to dial in on areas where there might be some extra opportunity. Okay, and then another thing that you can do, I'm not going to talk about it in depth in this one because we're going to talk more about building your power team, but the other thing that I do when I am choosing a market is I will also call realtors or brokers in the area and just tell them, here's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to buy a 10, 20, 30 unit, whatever I'm looking for at the time, apartment building. I want to be in a working class area, a B or C area, no war zones. And, I want to find out a little bit more about the city and your knowledge of it so I can kind of get an idea of where I should start looking. And then just be open to what they're saying, and you're going to talk to as many people as you can, and you're going to start feeling like, okay, I'm starting to see how it's coming together. And when they talk about what area of town, having a map up on your screen so you can look and go, oh, okay, got it, the Northwest area, I see, okay, that's the main freeway and that's how people get around. And it really helps you to start to know the place you're investing. And I realize we haven't talked about this before in this course, but one of the things that Jennifer and I are very passionate about is teaching people how to do real estate wherever it makes sense. Okay, so anything that I'm teaching you in this course, or pretty much in any course at any time in the future, it's always going to be how to do that real estate remotely without getting on a plane and going and flying there. I'm not talking about meeting brokers in person. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's unnecessary. Like, there's so much information that you can get just by having a phone conversation. And these days we have Zoom and FaceTime and Duo. There's all these ways to communicate face to face or just over the regular phone. So anything that I'm talking about right here, I'm just talking about doing from your desk at home without having to leave. All right, but really everything I teach you going forward will be that exact same thing. How to do it remotely. And I just realized I hadn't really set that expectation or set that precedent. And for those of you who are already familiar with us, you already know that we're super passionate about helping people do that, because it really does help you to create location freedom. It doesn't matter where your physical body is located, because you can operate real estate and operate your properties anywhere, from anywhere. As long as you have a phone connection or an internet connection, you're good to go. All right. So when I talk about the city's comprehensive plan, well, we'll get there in just a minute. I just wanted to lay the foundation for choosing a market, what kind of research we're going to be doing. All right. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use Google for population trends. Actually, I'm going to just do the rest of these bullet points, and then we're going to go off of the slides and go play out there. All right, so we're using Google for population trends, and I will show you exactly what that looks like. We're going to use the Bureau of Labor and Statistics for the unemployment trends and the employment trends. Okay, and we're going to use the city website, the city of whatever city you're looking at, to find the comprehensive plan. Now, generally speaking, you want to be looking in areas that are at least 100,000, ideally greater than 250,000 in population. As far as like the main city, there's nothing wrong with investing in a suburb of a main city, but because sometimes you'll find out you'll be drawn to an area because of the major metropolitan area. It's the one you've heard of, you know about it, you can do a bunch of research, but then you start contacting brokers and you start getting deals coming in, and that might be in some of the suburbs. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with doing that. When we do this initial research, this will be based on the market itself, the larger market, the metropolitan statistical area, the MSA. All right, so, all right, let's hop off of here. Let me stop this share. All right, and let's go to Google. Google, okay, don't need that. All right, so when you're gonna start looking up population, we're gonna pick a city. So let's say, and just, here's a caveat for everything in this class. Anytime I ever say a city, it is not because that's a great city to invest or it's a bad city to invest. I might use some specific example like Detroit, because anyone who's been there and sees all the revitalization going on in certain areas might think, oh, that's a great market to invest. And I'm just pointing out there's data to indicate that it might not be the best fit for your strategy. But in general, if I say a market, Jacksonville or Oklahoma City or Indianapolis or Seattle, it's just an example so I can show you how to look stuff up. But I'm not making a recommendation on that, because what you need to do is you need to go through the research and get all the data and review it and then make the decision based on your research. Okay, because there might be times that I pick a market that makes absolutely no sense, but I'm just picking them at random just to show you. Okay, so let's start off with, so you're in Google. So make sure you go to google.com, because I just realized that my browser, even though I think it's set to Google, apparently is like Yahoo search, which doesn't give you the same results of what I'm about to show you. So make sure you go to Google for this. So we're gonna type in, population. Actually, why don't we just go ahead and do Detroit, since I talked about it. I'll do a few with you so that you can just kind of see some different things. Let's say population in Detroit. Okay, so here's what we're gonna see when you pull up, when you put in population in, and then put in the major city. So Google gives you this kind of map thing that shows you what the population was in 1990 and what the population is now, and then just kind of what the trend has been. So in 1990, the population, I realize I can't move my mouse over there without it shifting. So I want you to just move your eyeballs, because I realize if I point at the screen, you can't see my finger either. So move your eyeballs from where the cursor is right now, straight over to the right. And do you see where it says Detroit? 1.029 million. So in 1990, Detroit had over 1 million people in its population. All right, so over the course of time since then, the population is now at 672,000. That means the population decreased by 35% over that time. So that's not a great indicator of a market where you want to be holding long term, because we don't see any indication right now that the population is starting to increase. Now, if you look back, you check back in a couple of years and all of a sudden you see starting to go up, okay, now it's a different story. But as of right now, it's not. Okay, so based on strictly data, this one would be off the list. One of the things that also comes up through these Google searches is it will oftentimes give you another city that's nearby. So in this case, Cleveland. And so sometimes you can be like, oh, I hadn't really thought of that one. Let me take a look at it. All right, so let's take a look at Cleveland. So Cleveland looks like it's a little bit on a downturn too. So it started off with 505,000 in 1990 and has steadily gone down to 383,000 in 2018. So same thing, I'd be like, yeah, okay, maybe it might be a nice market. Maybe I'd like to visit it. But as far as holding a multifamily or any kind of long-term rental property there, it's going to be off my list. I want to be in areas where it's in an incline. All right, so let's go back to Google and let's pick out some other ones. Let's say population in, let's try Cleveland, Ohio. Oh, and we just saw Cleveland, Ohio because of Detroit. Let's try Oklahoma City. Okay. All right, so we have two different things showing up here. We have Oklahoma City. We also have Tulsa. So Oklahoma City looks like it started off at 444,000. And I think you guys are seeing, but this is what I'm looking at right here. This is the number that's changing as I'm moving my cursor. So we started with 445,000 back in 1990, and looks like it's been on a steady incline to almost 650,000 people. So we've seen a really nice steady incline. So as far as like a first line of defense and saying, would I even consider looking further into this market? Sure, I would. It has a good positive population increase. Now, Tulsa is another market that is geographically close by. And let's see, it started off at 368,000 and it's up to 400,000. So it's gone up a tiny little bit. It seems to be a little bit more like even, but I wouldn't knock it off the list for that because it's not declining, but it wouldn't be on the top of my list. I like to see ones where like things are happening, the population is continuing to increase. All right, so this is what that looks like when you're seeing an increase. Let's do another one. What other market should we do? If her standing next to me. I know you guys can't see her. St. Louis. Okay, St. Louis. Jennifer says, let's take a look at St. Louis. Population in St. Louis, Missouri. Oh, it didn't give us the, oh, darn it. Okay, let's see if there's another way it wants us to look it up. St. Louis is one of those areas that's a little bit wonky on the things because they have a whole bunch of like little cities within a city. It's a little bit different. So we'll see if we can look it up another way. Oh, nope, it's not giving us the map. Okay, well, let's try a different one. What about Kansas City? Okay, there we go. All right, so most of the places have maps, but not all of them. So if you wanted to, if you were like, let's say that you were actually seriously interested in St. Louis and like, man, I just really want to find out, you just need to go and dig into the data. There's all sorts of it. I just don't usually have to because the things are right here. But if you want to invest somewhere and you need to see what the population increase has been, keep in mind that we have a census bureau. In fact, this is all pulled from the Census Bureau. They have to have like tables and data and all of that. You just got to go dig in and figure out where it's at and then see that way if it doesn't have the map this way. Okay, so it looks like we have three different things here. We have Kansas City, interesting, Omaha, and Kansas City again. I'm guessing that one is Kansas City, Missouri, and one's probably Kansas City, Kansas. All right, so right here, we're starting off with 435,000 people in 1990, and we're at 491,000. So it's been a little bit of an incline over the years. Interestingly enough, Omaha, which really wasn't even on our radar, had quite a bit of an increase. So that started off at 358,000 in 1990, and it's been going up, and it's now at 468,000. So let's say I was doing some research for Kansas City, and I was like, oh, Kansas, okay, yeah, that's okay. Omaha, what's going on with Omaha? Now, I haven't done any further research to know whether Omaha's a good rental market. Like, I don't know whether the numbers even work there. Maybe the rents are not that high compared to the prices, but maybe they are. This would be a situation where I look at that and go, huh, let me go ahead and just write it down. And as I do the rest of my research, maybe I'll come across a market that frankly I really hadn't even thought about. Okay, so this is what this part of the research looks like. As you can see, it's really, really quick. Now, it's probably quicker for me just because I've been doing it for a while. I can quickly, pick out areas. If you're just stumped on, like, I don't even know where to start, let me teach you my trick. I tend to be overly analytical at times, and that doesn't really serve us, frankly, when you're just trying to get started. I'm going to teach you some of the hacks that I've used to help me get going. All right, so if you just don't even know where to start at all, what you're going to do is you're just going to start picking a couple of random places, pick a couple of states, maybe 4 or 5 states, and then go look and Google what are the largest by population, like what are the largest cities in blah. So let's say Nebraska. Okay, so I'll just walk you through. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'll just show you what I do. So for those of you who are super analytical and everything has to be exactly right before you'll make a move, trust me, you got to let that go because it doesn't serve you. The time that I shouldn't say let it go for right now. Where that's going to come in handy and it's going to serve you so well is when you get to the point in the business where you're actually in a deal and you're in due diligence. But you got to take that part of your personality and pull it out of you and go stick it in the shoebox, put your foot on top of it, and you got to go into go getter mode. Things don't have to be perfect. You have to create momentum. Otherwise, nothing will happen. And then when you get your first deal under contract, that's when you pull back, slow down, and bring out your super analytical side. That's when it really serves you. All right, so let's say I said Nebraska. So let's say I'm I'm terrible at geography. What are the main cities in Nebraska? I have an idea, but let's just say largest cities in Nebraska. Okay. Now, here's one thing about Googling largest cities. It could mean, depending on what website you pull up, they could be talking about geographically largest cities. So just be aware of that. Make sure that you're looking at the population. So pull Wikipedia. Not that I'm making any purchase decisions based on Wikipedia, but I can at least help to narrow something down. Okay, so based on what I'm seeing here, there's really only 2 markets I would even bother looking into. Omaha, which is one of them, which is what came up on our Google search before, and then Lincoln. Based on the size of them, and both of them have been increasing, I wouldn't be focusing on these smaller ones because the populations are they're small, right? We want to have at least 100,000, ideally 250,000, so there's a lot of buyers for our product. And for us, of course, we're not talking about buyers, we're talking about renters, but we want to make sure there's a lot of people who want what we have to offer. Okay, so that's how I would look it up. And then if I was like, okay, so let me put those 2 on my list, then you come back to Google Map and pick your next one. Okay, how about Tennessee? Largest cities in Tennessee. All right, well, that wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but let's see if we can find something that's a little bit more like a chart. Largest cities in Tennessee. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, those are images. Web. World Atlas. Let's try this. Oh, I just saw one that had population data. Okay, this one doesn't have it. Okay, the 5 most populated cities in Tennessee. Okay, well, I mean, since this is pretty much serving the question we're asking, which is population, we can work with this. Here's one thing that you guys are going to learn about real estate. If you're not already in real estate, you got to get really comfortable with just looking stuff up. Well, I don't know the answer to that question. Let me see what Google has to say. Let me click on this link. Let me click on that link until you find the answer. Especially if you're ever going through any kind of training. And I know this is the case for me. I've had to really become good at this. You expect, because you're being told about how things work, sometimes you expect that everything is just okay, here you go, and here's the answer. Where really what serves you is learning how to think differently, how to think like an investor, how to go find the information that you need, because you're not always going to have someone there to just hand it to you. All right, so just getting on and Google and being willing to dig through things is a great skill to develop if that's not something you feel naturally inclined to do. All right, which it wasn't for me, but now I'm like the computer tech person in our house now, even though I knew nothing about computers, mainly because every time I would get stuck on something, I would go to YouTube and I would watch some videos, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I know how to do it. So it's just the research function that really helps you to grow in whatever you're trying to learn. All right, so Nashville looks like it's the largest, has estimated population of 667. So from a population standpoint, it's like, okay, Memphis, 650,000, Knoxville, 186,000. So all three of these from a strictly size standpoint would work. You got Chattanooga at 177 and Clarksville at 150. So all these are at least over 150,000. So you could say, okay, I'll put those on my little spreadsheet or on my list, and then let me go Google and see like what the population trend has been on that. Okay, so that's just if you're stuck on where to even start. Just pick 5 states, look up the biggest cities in there, and then just start there. I don't want you guys getting stuck in analysis paralysis. All right, so that's the population side of it. Now, the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the employment trends. All right, so I already pulled it up before we started. Here's the website. You're going to want to write it down. It's bls.gov/LAU/metro SSA.htm. All right, so here we are. This is the local area unemployment statistics for the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So once you're at this sheet right here, if you just scroll down to the bottom to where it says downloadable data files, and then come over here to where it says zip. Now, this is table 1, civilian labor force and unemployment by metropolitan area, seasonally adjusted. You want to make sure it's this one, not unemployment by selected metropolitan area, because it might be that the area you're looking at isn't in there. Now, okay, so I'm going to pull that. So you would basically click on zip. It's going to allow you to download the zip file. I'm not going to do that because I've already done it, but I am going to share with you what that looks like. Okay, so when you download it, this is what the file looks like. Now, it's enormous. Now, these actually were not there before. All it is this. It's just that I've used this file to break out some information. But it has just, I mean, never ending, it seems, data. So I want to show you just kind of how to navigate around a little bit in that. So let's say that I want to let's do Omaha. So I'm going to use my edit find. And if you don't know how to do your find function in Excel, make a note that you need to go YouTube, I say Google, but YouTube, how to find in Excel. Okay, like these are the little things, and it will save you so much time to learn how to do that. It's actually super, super simple. But if you don't know how to do it, go watch a video, learn how to do it, and it'll make your research go faster. Okay, so I'm going to find Omaha. Okay, all right, it looks like it's the right one. So the thing about this spreadsheet is there are sometimes places that have the same name, but in multiple states. So you do need to double check. So there could have been like Omaha, Oregon. If that was, which I don't think there is one, but if there is an Omaha, Oregon, it would have something with OR, and I'd be like, oh wait, that's the wrong state. Let me like scroll down past this section and then start again. Okay, so this is just the way I normally do it. So I'll click on the plus just to create a blank spreadsheet. I'll come back here and I'm just gonna highlight this whole section. So if you see, it starts off in 1990, and basically it's month 1 in 1990. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, blah, 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 all 1990. Then it goes to 1991. So this is gonna be a lot of data. Probably don't need all of this, but I'll just show it to you anyway. So we're gonna start here and we're gonna go all the way until we get down to the end of Omaha. It's probably gonna be like 2018. Oops. Because what we're looking for right now is trends. Okay, so since we don't have current, it actually is pretty current. It's November 2019. Okay, that's cool. So I'm just gonna copy this. Again, if you don't know how to copy, YouTube that. All right, so I'm gonna copy it. I'm gonna move it to my blank sheet, paste it, make these a little bit wider. I'm gonna come back here and I'm gonna go grab my row that has like what the categories are, what the columns are, so that I know what I'm even looking at. Let me paste that. Okay, so what I'm looking at here is, so this is still Omaha. right? This is the area, and this is over time. I want to look at maybe the last 10 years or so. And maybe, Teresa, maybe that's what you're asking. I'm not sure if you're asking about the timeline on how far back. Okay, so if we're at 2019, let's go back to like 2009. Okay, so this is the unemployment rate in January 2009. So what we're looking for is as we're scrolling down, we want to see that over the course of time that the unemployment rate has improved. And of course, improved unemployment means it's going down. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So it looks like it, actually I'm just looking here a little bit. So we see 2007, it was only 3, 2008, it was starting to go up to 4, 2009, it was going up to 5. So that makes sense because that was the time that we went through like that massive real estate crash, or the entire economy crashed. And so unemployment went up in a lot of places. All right, so that makes sense. All right, so we'll look down. So we're in the 5s. All right, and it's in the mid 4s. So it looks to be going down. Now it's in the low 4s. Now it's in the high 3s, mid 3s. Now we're at, look at 2015. Okay, so it looks like so far it's going well. Let's just see if it keeps going. Now it's in the low 3s. Now it's at 3. Now it's down in the high 2s. And we're in 2018. So overall, and then it went up to 3 and 3.1. So overall, what you're seeing is an overall positive employment trend because the unemployment was steadily going down over the course of time. Now, the fact that this went from 2.9 to 2.8 back up to 3.0, 3.1, I'm not super concerned because that's not a big change. But I would be like, well, I mean, I wonder what's going on. It was doing well, then for a few months it went, it went up 1, and then went up another 1, and another 1. So I might be like, well, let me just ask if this ended up being one of the markets I was interested in based on my other research. It'd be a question that I would ask when I called and talked to someone from the city or talking to some realtors, like, hey, economically, how is the area doing? Because this really isn't a big change, but it's just the fact that it was going a little bit the other way when it had been so steadily decreasing. But, in 2017, it was 3. So overall, it's not a big change, but it looked like it was getting better, and then it started getting just a little bit worse. All right, so that's Omaha. Let's pick one more. Where should we pick? How about let's try Kansas City. Let's see how Kansas City is looking from that standpoint. Kansas City, Missouri. Okay, so the interesting thing about Kansas City is, remember, these are not cities in this spreadsheet. These are metropolitan statistical areas, which oftentimes encompass multiple cities. It's almost like the city and all of the little suburbs within it are in a metropolitan statistical area. So that's really hard to say 5 times fast. I realize it's even hard to say 1 time fast. But anyway, if you're ever finding that you can't find the city that you're interested in, and let's say it's not a main hub, you might then have to do the extra step of going to Google and saying, what MSA does blah, blah, blah city belong in, or what MSA is this city in, and then find out what MSA it's in, and then go look up the MSA here. Okay, so that's just an extra step that you might have to do if the city you're researching isn't a large one. All right, so we have Kansas City. Let's go ahead and copy that information. Okay, at the end of it, it goes kind of quick on you. Okay, so let's copy that. Let's start a new sheet. I'm gonna paste it. Let me go back and get my code at the top. Okay. So another thing that you can see is the civilian labor force and the employment, and then the unemployment as numbers. I just find that from your eye standpoint, because all of this stuff that we're doing right now is intended to be quick decisions. I'm taking a much longer in showing you how to do it because I'm explaining as we go. But in reality, I'm only spending a couple of minutes to just say, okay, yes, it's positive trend, or oh, nope, negative trend, and just yes, no, yes, no. What I'm looking to do is take my list from 10 or 20 markets and narrow it down to just a couple that I can actually then really dig into. Okay, so we got our unemployment rate. So let's go down and start at 2010 again. So we're talking a little bit more recent. Okay, ouch. Okay, so in 2009 is even worse. Ouch. Okay, so in 2010 we were at 8.8. Okay, so let's just see how are we, how are we doing over time? Went down to 7, down to 6, down to 5, down to 4, down to 3, now in the low 3s. Okay, so this particular MSA has been just steadily decreasing. It looked like it went up a little bit, 3.2 to 3.3 to 3.4, and then started going back down again, 3.3, 3.2, 3.1. Now, also just keep in mind that these are snapshots of time based on a day in a month. But the nice thing is you have it every month, which is why wasn't too concerned about Omaha, because it was a fairly short amount of time, and since it's a snapshot in time. But it does give you, a nice way to look at the trends of it. If you're really into like Excel and Excel nerding out on this, I'm not going to go into it because I don't want people to be like, I don't know how to do that and freak out, because you can actually just really see from here. But if you're really good in Excel and you're like the visual, you can always take this data and create like a visual chart if you like doing that. All right, so just so you know, that's what's possible. All right, so that's what you're going to do is, so starting with the Google, making sure the population trend is good. If the population trend isn't good, I'm not bothering to go on to this next step. That's the whole point. The whole point is to create, it's like a funnel. Start with 20 markets and go down until you have a couple that you're going to really dig in and start doing some lead generation and power team building in. All right, so let's talk about your homework. Okay, when you're doing like full on research, when you are like seriously going into I'm ready to buy mode, I would start with like 20 markets. I would not limit yourself at all, because you want to have like a nice range of properties to choose from. For the purpose of the homework for this, I want to give you something that you can do and that you could do today, really in the next hour or two, so that you have it for tomorrow and then you're done. So we're going to keep the homework small, but it will be enough to like get you going on the websites, get you some practice. Don't be frustrated if things don't come to you as quickly as I'm showing you. It's because I have years and years and years of clicking around on these things. But the first time I ever do anything, I'm like, wait, where did they click again? So just know that's totally normal and it's 100% fine. Be patient with yourself. Take the time and do it. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to choose 3 major markets, and I want you to do population research and record your findings. So what I mean is you could just do something as basic as write down the city name, write down the population in 1990, and write down the population in 2018. Okay, or you could just say, uptrending. You can kind of do it whatever way you want, but the whole point is to get you practicing doing that. Okay, so pick 3 major markets and do that. And then what I also want you to do is I want you to go do that employment research and record findings. If one of the markets you pick happens to be on a decline for population-wise, then just pick a couple more markets. Go ahead and go through enough markets until you have 3 that have positive trends. You'll find that a lot of them have had positive trends. So I want you to actually do the employment research on 3 major markets. So if your population one doesn't produce a viable yes, go ahead and just pick another one until you have 3 that you can practice doing that employment research on.